When Lauri Markkanen was traded to the Utah Jazz in that massive package deal that included multiple first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell, the picks alone, 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps, made the deal a fleecing in and of itself, on top of the already large haul the Jazz received in the Rudy Gobert deal. But no one at the time would have expected that one of the greatest assets from those 2 trade deals would end up becoming Lauri Markkanen, the athletic big man who came into the league incredibly promising with the Chicago Bulls, and then, with limited development, changing roles, poor roster construction, questions about Markkanen's future as a bona fide star-level player were in doubt. And when Markkanen went to the Cavs, where they already had 2 developing bigs in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, his role as a go-to scoring option was taken away yet again. And when the Cavs decided to pivot and make an all-in move to acquire Donovan Mitchell, Markkanen was the added piece to be included in that deal to make the money work. For the Jazz, the prize in that trade was the picks. Guys like Markkanen and Colin Sexton were consolation prizes in that deal. But right away, as soon as Markkanen put on a Jazz uniform and stepped onto the court for the team, it was clear Lauri's untapped potential from his days in Chicago were still there, and that potential had finally started to come to fruition, and Markkanen having one of the most dominant seasons of his career, going from averaging under 15 points per game with the Cavs to over 25 points per game on high efficiency, shooting 39% from deep on over 7 attempts per game, 50% from the field and 87% from the line. To think that Markkanen from his prior season that we saw with the Cavs going to damn near hitting 50-40-90 club wasn't something any one of us could have anticipated. Lauri would be selected to his first All-Star game and would finish this season as the most improved player of the year. The Jazz hit on a player from that trade deal, and Markkanen far exceeded expectations in outplaying his contract, which had now become one of the biggest value deals in the league. There was just one problem for the Jazz though. Lauri Markkanen became a little too good, better than expected, and that was disrupting their strategy at a full-blown rebuild. While moving on from Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and getting a plethora of picks from it, at the end of the day, the Jazz still wouldn't be able to control those picks that they got, but their own picks. They could do their best to ensure those were the highest lottery selections possible. But the Jazz in both seasons since acquiring Markkanen performed better than expected, in large part due to Lauri's resurgence, and both seasons would result in landing picks number 9 and 10 in the 23 and 24 drafts respectively. Instead of increasing their odds for a chance to land Victor Wembanyama, they ended up with Taylor Hendricks instead. Thus, rumors had started to swirl on the Jazz being open to trading Lauri Markkanen to try and flip one of their greatest trade assets for even more draft capital to add to their treasure trove of picks, and obviously hoping to tank without their best player. And while rumors and speculation continued to heat up throughout the offseason, with the Golden State Warriors showing the most interest in the big man to add a true big and floor spacer alongside Steph Curry, those trade discussions fell through as the Jazz wanted far more in return than the Warriors were willing to give up, and Lauri would ultimately end up signing an extension with the Jazz just 1 day after he was eligible to sign said extension, a day that was so significant and calculated in Lauri choosing to sign on that day, as it effectively took away the possibility for Markkanen to be traded at any point next season, with the NBA trade deadline being on February 6th, and Markkanen being unable to be traded for 6 months after signing an extension. Thus, Lauri Markkanen will, no matter what, remain with the Utah Jazz for the entire 24-25 season. Some might say that's a good thing, and it most certainly is a good thing for Markkanen, as he now has the stability of knowing he won't be traded this upcoming year. But when you peel back what it means for the Jazz going forward, you realize that Danny Ainge, a GM known for his incredible wheeling and dealing and fleecing teams and trades, that he messed up on this one, and it could cost the Utah Jazz greatly. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about it. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, Danny Ainge has always historically been known around the league for his insane asking prices on some of his players, borderline delusional in his expectations of what a player's value is on the trade market. That said though, Ainge time and again has come away with some of the biggest hauls in league history for his star players. Of course, everyone remembers what was arguably one of the worst trades in NBA history, where Ainge traded his aging veterans Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett for multiple first-round picks from the Brooklyn Nets, all unprotected picks, I might add, 2 of which would end up becoming Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who would be the foundational pieces for a title run in Boston. And then more recently getting a combined 7 picks and 4 pick swaps and multiple young players for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So when the word started to get out that the Jazz were entertaining offers for Lauri Markkanen, we knew that the only chance for Ainge to even consider trading him was if someone was willing to grossly overpay for the man. We initially heard reports of the Jazz wanting at least 5 first-round picks for Lauri, which I guess maybe now doesn't sound so crazy considering the Knicks just coughed over that many picks for Mikal Bridges. But then the asking price started getting more and more insane, where the Jazz not only wanted a plethora of picks, but also the team's best young up-and-coming talents. But the team that was most often linked to Markkanen in trade rumors was the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors, a team that is trying to somehow salvage the final good years of Steph Curry and trying to compete for one last championship, to make an all-in push to add another star alongside Steph. And a team that has played small ball for so many years is now in desperate need of an athletic big that can space the floor and get to the rim at will. Lauri Markkanen was their guy. That big offseason move to put them back in the title conversation after missing the playoffs last season. And according to Shams Charania, the Warriors actually offered a pretty sizable package deal for Markkanen that included Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, pick swaps, and multiple second-rounders. Now, we don't know how many picks specifically and what the protections were on some of those picks, but getting a sizable amount of draft capital and a young player, Moses Moody, who is a fine player, no one's saying he's going to be a star or anything, but a player you can take a flyer on who's only 22 years old, hasn't really gotten much opportunity for a team that has been looking to win with their vets. All of it is a pretty good offer for Lauri Markkanen. Lauri is good, but he's not a superstar. He has his flaws defensively. Let's also not forget that he's never played a single game in the postseason himself, but I digress. That was the final offer from the Warriors for Lauri Markkanen. And wouldn't you know it, the Jazz said no. And evidently it wasn't even close to the asking price of what they had in mind for Lauri. It had been reported weeks leading up to free agency that the Jazz sought Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, and multiple first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen. Talk about being bold and shooting for the moon on that one, because again, this is Lauri Markkanen. We're not talking about Nikola Jokic here. But while we can sit here and laugh about the ridiculous asking price the Jazz had for Lauri, and Danny Ainge can play hardball thinking he doesn't back down for anyone, he got a little too overconfident in the value that he placed on Lauri, and it's now coming back to bite him. Here's the thing, what made Markkanen so valuable in the trade market was not so much his talent, production, and unique skill set for a player his size. All of that is great, obviously, but more so his production relative to his contract. Lauri Markkanen signed a 4-year, $67 million deal in that sign and trade deal to the Cavs. He made $17.2 million last season when a lot of teams wanted him at the trade deadline. He still had 1 more year left on his deal. And then he was set to be making $18 million in the final year of his contract before it was renegotiated. A bargain deal, considering the man is one of the top scorers and three-point shooters in the league. Yes, you would eventually have to pay him, but getting a player of Markkanen's caliber at under $20 million is what made his value so attractive on the trade market, as it would have given high payroll teams like the Warriors the ability to have multiple star players while paying one of them half of what most star players command. Lauri Markkanen, 27 years old, peak of his prime, playing his best basketball. His trade value will never be higher than this. By the time Markkanen is eligible to be traded, he'll not only have aged 1 more year and inching closer to 30, but he'll now be on a max level salary on a long-term contract that will be paying him well into his 30s. That alone will have teams second guessing about trading their entire future for Markkanen, especially under today's CBA and the dreaded tax aprons. Everyone loved Zach LaVine when he was putting up over 25 points per game on near 50-40-90 shooting splits when he was making $18 million a year. It's a whole new ballgame when you talk about trading for Zach LaVine on a max contract. And now, nearly 2 years later, the trade market for Zach LaVine is little to non-existent. Different circumstances, I know, but the point being that a player's trade value can be highly impacted by their contract even if they are one of the better players in the NBA. Simply put, teams are wary of taking on big contracts in today's NBA unless they know for sure that a player can get them over the top. And so now, what was once one of the most valuable trade pieces on the market is now ineligible to be traded for this upcoming season. And the Jazz will keep their best player on their roster, a player that will make them too good to truly enter the tank for Cooper Flag sweepstakes, but not good enough to truly make any noise in the postseason. Lauri Markkanen is single-handedly keeping the Jazz mid, the worst place to be in NBA basketball. And now, there's nothing they can do about it until next summer before they try again to get some value for him in a trade. In my view, the Jazz fumbled the bag on this one, asked for too much, and waited too long to capitalize on Markkanen's trade value. They could have found themselves sitting on multiple first-round picks from the Warriors, which, given Steph and Draymond won't be on the team for that long, could end up becoming juicy picks, but multiple first-round picks, Moses Moody. This move would have given you a much higher likelihood at getting a top pick in a stacked 2025 draft class, and could have set you up even further into the future with the mountain of picks you already have at your disposal. Instead, now they likely find themselves in a position where they'll have to take back less in a trade deal for Lauri and end up getting the number 10 or 11 pick yet again. Danny Ainge is a smart man. He's one of the best in the business, but he really screwed this one up. Just my take on the matter. I would love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.